Danai Gurira, you play Michonne on The Walking Dead. You joined the show in the middle of its run. What was it like being the new person on the set that year?
It was everything. It was really exciting. It was like, whoa, this is a massive show, and I'm stepping into it. But it was the best part was how wonderfully I was embraced by my cast and the crew. It's just an astounding place to go to work every day, and I've really, it's so much work. It's so much you put so much into it, but it's such a family. You actually are really excited to see everybody every day, and that's really what it was like joining. I just felt really embraced. I remember the first day. I was shooting. It was really just me all day, and then a small scene with Laurie Holden, and Scott Wilson came onto the set, and just to encourage me and to show love and support. And I'll just never forget how embraced I felt by that. So it was beautiful that way. Even though, yeah, it was very, very scary.
Michonne is a popular character from the comic books, and that can be scary in its own way too, since fans can be really passionate about and protective of their favorite stories and characters. Were you worried about how you'd be received by the core fans?
I mean, yeah, it does go through one's mind, but at the end of the day, you just really have to do your best for the character, for what you're creating with a team of writers, and Mr. Kirkman, the creator of Michonne, was on board and was also very much a part of the process, and how she would be similar to the character that he created on the page, and how she would be different. And a lot of the key episodes that I was in, that Michonne was in that first season, were written by him, as well as actually one of the ones last season. So it was such a collaboration that I felt like we were just creating something that maybe some people wouldn't be thrilled with, and some people would be, but we just had to focus on what we were creating and hope that eventually they would all embrace it.
Yeah. Do you think it's liberating, maybe, that the show doesn't quite follow exactly the storyline from the comic books, unlike, say, something like Game of Thrones, where people who've read the books know what's coming next? In this case, people who've read the comic books don't necessarily know what's going to happen next on The Walking Dead.
Yeah, I think that's actually really, really cool. I love how they take details and thread them through different characters. So something that happened to one character in the comic book actually ends up happening to another character on the show, and you just really never know how they're going to do it. And I find it very clever how the writers have weaved in the details in very significant ways and taken certain images out of the comic book, but then kind of reworked them for the television screen. So I think it's really fascinating. I mean, of course, the horrible way that that Herschel was killed last season was actually something that happened to Tyrese in the comic books. It's just kind of that sort of flow of where it could land, and I think that kind of keeps it exciting and unpredictable, and I love it. I love seeing what they're going to come up with next, and which detail they're going to give to who next, and we just shot something that does that again, and I just find it really, really awesome.
You probably hear this question a lot, given the high body count on The Walking Dead, but do you pick up scripts for every episode and fear that you might not survive the week?
Well, they wouldn't be that cruel to you as to let you find out the week you read the episode. You're like, what? They do give forewarnings of these things and let you know stuff about your character's arc. So yeah, you have to kind of embrace that as the beauty of the show is that it is based on a story where people's lives are being lost very quickly and very, unfortunately, very easily. And so the beauty of the show is that it is authentic to that. It didn't take from the comic book and then say, yeah, but no one dies. In the show, no one dies. It actually ventured into actually keeping it authentic to the original story. And that's hard. I mean, it's hard to lose characters. It's hard to not know if it could happen when. But, at the same time, it totally... It's great storytelling because it's real to the world. If everyone was just alive all the time in the apocalypse, I mean, it's like, really? That's just not believable. And I think, it does keep people kind of glued to the screen because they just don't know. They're always very, very... My sister always talks about how she almost has a heart attack every time she watches the show. You just never know what's going to happen next. But the beauty of it is it's not to, create some sort of survivor fear factor thing. It's really just authentically true to the nature of the world the characters are in. So you just have to embrace that as an actor of the show, as what you signed up for,
One of the signature features of your character is her sword. How much sword work do you do yourself, and how much of that is stunt actors?
Oh, God, I don't have any stunt actors do my sword work. You've never seen a stunt actor hold my sword. like ever. Just to put that out there. We've used a stunt woman twice in the duration of my time, and it had nothing to do with the sword. It was just safety stuff. They didn't want me to leap over something, stuff where they're like, well, if something goes wrong with that, we lose you for a long time. But in terms of the sword, I'm the only person you've ever seen holding it. And I've really enjoyed learning it. It was very, very intimidating. It's a very intimidating weapon, and also a stunningly beautiful one. And it was very scary to start learning. I had like about 3 weeks before my first shoot. They're like, okay, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is scary. But thankfully, I had an amazing trainer, Adam Hart, in Los Angeles, and thankfully, I have done a lot of physical stuff. Like I'm pretty athletic. So that helped, but nothing really helps you when it comes to that weapon. I mean, it's just such an entity unto itself. So it was painful, and it was a lot of Epsom salt baths, and it was a lot of massages. And then, slowly but surely, my body started to connect more with it. And then I sort of started to connect to Michonne through it and understood why it was something that she would never let go of, because it's just such a powerful tool in a world like that, and it makes you feel powerful. And so she started making more sense to me through how I started to connect physically to the weapon. So yeah, it's actually been, and in terms of keeping on doing it, I just did another training session with Adam Hart in LA just before I came out here to shoot, and I use the katana as a part of how I just work out. I'll work out in a certain way, and then every time I feel like stepping away from whatever I'm doing, I pick up my sword and do a lot of drills and stuff. So I love it. I love that weapon. It's a kind of a gift. I don't know how Mr. Kirkman came up with this chick, but I'm thankful that he did. She's really fun to play.
When you first started on the show, Michonne was very mistrusting and kept most of her thoughts and feelings to herself. Is it challenging to play someone so internal who keeps her emotions very much in check, who's not overly demonstrative?
It was, especially for me, because I'm very demonstrative, and I wear my heart completely on my sleeve. So it was very, very challenging in the beginning. It was interesting, though, because your thought life becomes very active as a result of not really being able to speak, and really understanding how she thought and why she had so much PTSD going on. And a part of how her PTSD came out was to be very mistrusting, to be very emotionally shut down, and to really always be looking for the other angle and being a strategist so that she never loses, because vulnerability was something she was not willing to step anywhere near. So it was really an interesting sort of mind to live in, and the sort of mind that says, who's willing to be aggressive when she needs to very quickly, but is very unwilling to crack a smile. So it was a very interesting mind to live in, and body to live in. It was a whole other body, and it was interesting because the minute I put on her shoes, I'm very girly, and I wear cute little shoes and heels and stuff, and she wears these boots, and it was so interesting putting them on for the first time and walking in them, because it just totally changed how I moved. And I was like, oh, there she is. It was something so interesting about, she's practical, she's pragmatic, and she's very willing to strike when she needs to, and very willing to be at the ready to strike, because it's just, in her mind, she just refuses to lose. So it was just very interesting to play a woman who thought like that, and who walked the world like that, and who did not speak, which is my tool. I love to speak. I love words. So it was an interesting differentiation. But at the same time, the thing where we connected was, I'm definitely someone who would stand up for things that I find deeply wrong and egregious. And she does that. We just had different ways of assessing what was deeply wrong and egregious. But in terms of that sort of fire in our belly, I think that's where I could meet her in that way. But yeah, so it was challenging, to answer your question. It was nice to sort of break her down and open her up in the last season.
Yeah, as you said, she did open up in the last season. We learned a lot more about her backstory. She sort of warmed up to the people around her. What do you think it was that finally made her, or made her feel like it was safe to let down her guard and show her feelings this year?
It was a lot of things. I think it really was a process that started for her and just gradually grew. It started actually in the middle of season 3, where she has that wretched fight with the governor and takes out his eye. and then decides to go back to the prison and really kind of imposes herself on Rick. And he's willing to like get rid of her because she disappeared in the middle of the battle. And she really kind of pushes to go back. There's actually something that the audience doesn't see, but she actually really cracked in that moment because she really realized, after realizing Andrea was no longer with her and was chosen the governor over her, that she needed people. But really she realized it then, and that's why she went back to the governor, but God, no, to the prison with them instead of walking out into the world with two walkers, pets, and her sword, which she could easily do. But she chose to go back with them and to contribute to the prison and to getting rid of the governor. And that was really the beginning of the process. And it was really this realization that either I live with people or I go out there and kind of live with the dead. And it's time to start living with people again. And so slowly but surely she starts to show that. Like there's episode 12 of season 3 where she goes with Carl and Rick and they meet Morgan. And that's really the episode where she starts to really put an effort into investing into relationships with this man and his son. And you realize, that's when she finally breaks the very cold ice that Carl has against her, and they start to form friendship from her insisting on protecting him and taking care of him. And then you start to realize by the beginning of season 4, she's stayed and she's become closer with Daryl. She's become closer, of course, more close with Rick and Carl. And so there's just been this build, and then you see when she loses everybody, because what she was doing was she was still running out and doing her little horse runs where she'd leave up by herself and not hang out with anybody for a while because she kind of needed her man cave time because she still was a loner. But when she loses everybody, just as she decides to be a part of the group fully, she loses everybody to the governor's attack. And that was really where, it was really like, am I going to go through loss again and again and again? And she does take on two new pets and decides to go out into the world by herself again, sees footsteps, could go follow them, and decides not to. And then a lot of, just the assessment of her past, we start to see she had a son, she had a man, start to see that parallel of how, then we learn later in the season how she lost them and how her son, certainly parallels Carl in a way, and the way that Rick does take care of his son is something that, unfortunately, her man did not do. So you sort of start to realize how the connections, why the connections are there, why she cares so much about these people, and when she finds them again, after really resolving to live and not go back into the dead, because there's a scene where she's just surrounded by zombies, and she could easily within a second become a zombie if they realize she's not dead. And she makes a choice in that moment when she sees her doppelganger, this zombie that looks just like her. She makes a choice to live and not to become that, and to know I'm not that. I'm not meant to become that. I won't go down without a fight. And that's when she sort of slays the zombies in her soul and in her presence. And then she chooses to really invest in these people. And that's when you see her, when she finds Rick and Carl, full investment. There's no reason to hold back anymore. She's sort of dealt with her grief in a sense of metabolizing it. Before it wasn't metabolized, so it was just on her and she was just cold and distant. But once she finally could get through it and realized, I can live again, she really is like, I want to use my power for the good of others and to care for these people. And that's what she says to Rick in that next episode. Is this, she's done taking breaks and she's ready to completely invest in this community. So it's quite a journey. It starts really from the beginning and then kind of comes to its full conclusion in a sense once she finds Rick and Carl again.
One of the things I like about the show is how those character relationships shift over time. As you mentioned, you had after the prison attack by the governor, your character found Rick and Carl again, and they formed this very close unit. What was it like exploring that new side of your character in those more intimate scenes with Andrew Lincoln and Chandler Riggs?
Oh my God, it's actually those are some of my most favorite things. I mean, I do love the mass zombie slaying scenes. Don't get me wrong, I love those. I love them, but I really love doing scenes with Andrew and with Chandler, and it was really liberating, because she did have all that intensity in her could easily be channeled in another direction, and it's finally getting to channel itself differently. And it was really liberating to like just have her live in that other side of herself that she hasn't really allowed to be shown since before the disaster happened and before she went through her trauma. So it's really enjoyable to work with both of them and to have the intimacy that she has with them, to actually allow her to finally live in intimate moments. And working with those two is amazing. Working with Chandler is astounding. I'm like, how old are you again? Like, he's just really kind of an astounding young man. And it's always just really easy and fulfilling to work with him. And of course, I live in deep admiration of Mr. Lincoln. So it's always really, really thoroughly enjoyable to work with both of them. And so the fact that these are the characters that she sort of finds her heart again through is really, really great.
Now, this past season, Michonne also lost one of her biggest adversaries in the governor, who she ran through with a sword during that siege of the prison. Was it bittersweet to film those scenes, for Michonne to finally get her revenge, but also to have to say goodbye to David Morrissey?
I hated losing David. I love David so much, and I had so much fun with him. We had so much fun trying to kill each other. It was ridiculous. So it was very sad to lose him. He's such an astounding actor, and a very, very, very funny man. He's just seriously hilarious. But it was interesting because for Michonne, by that point, she wasn't actually looking for revenge. Something she says to Tyrese in episode 3 when he's kind of lashing out because of his loss of Karen and almost gets himself killed when we go out to get medicine. And she says, he says, aren't you mad at the governor? And she said, I'm not mad anymore. If he was right in front of me, I'd kill him. But it's just because that's what has to happen. And so I think at some point she gets to a point where it's not about rage. It's just about this man is pathological. This man is he's unable to be redeemed, and she sees that. He's a sociopath, and he just needs to go down because he's going to keep coming back and trying to hurt those I love. Forget me, I can handle myself, but he's going to keep trying to hurt those that I now care about, and so he just needs to be eliminated. And so that was kind of her mindset. When she does kill the governor or give him his fatal wound, it's not rageful. It wasn't even emotional. It was just what had to happen. And of course, he's also almost taking Rick's life, which was also an urgent need to get rid of him at that moment. But it was really a very just, it must be done type move. Like the sort of same thing she did when she went into the convenience store in her first episode and took out those 3 zombies to get the aspirin for her friend. It was the same type of mindset. Like this has to just happen. You have to go down now. So yeah, I think that it was unfortunate that for her, the pain of it all was that she didn't get to him sooner, so that he could have done less damage. The fact of losing Herschel right there and things like that, and ruining their home, that is something she just wishes she could have got to him sooner.
Is there anyone on the show, any other characters or actors you'd like to explore a storyline more closely with, who you haven't worked as much with already?
Oh yeah. I love everybody. I think everybody's just fascinating. I love Sonequa, who plays Sasha. We've explored things with Norman Reedus a little bit last season, but I love Norman. I love, of course, Melissa McBride. I love Glenn and Maggie. I mean, I love everybody. I would love to explore things with just everybody. I think they're really, really fascinating group of people, and I think the way that our characters could interact. The new character Tara, she's fascinating to me. Everybody's really kind of the new characters Abraham and Eugene and Rosita. I mean, they're all really fascinating folk. So I'm really excited to see how it all goes down because yeah, I think it would be very cool to get to know all these characters and for Michonne to interact with some of these characters. You know, like Michonne and Abraham, what is that? You know, what would that interaction be? Michonne and Eugene, what would that interaction be? You know, so yeah, I mean, it's really an embarrassment of riches how many great interactions I can imagine happening with the people I get to work with.
You're a potential Emmy contender for Best Supporting Actress in a Drama, and if you're nominated, you'll have to submit a sample episode to Emmy judges. Do you have an episode in mind that you think was your best work from the past season?
Oh, gosh. Lord knows I haven't thought about that at all. You can't make a little remix tape, like where you take your best...
Oh, no, that would be great. Just string the best scenes together, but unfortunately, they require just one sad episode.
Right, exactly. That would be because we're such a great like ensemble cast, so there's a lot of great things in each episode that we get to do a little bit here, a little bit there. I really haven't thought about that. I mean, there are things I love about different episodes. I love getting to work with Chandler in episode 11 of last year, where we go into the house and find the people who'd killed themselves and the children who had been shot. And, that whole episode, I just thought it really allowed her to exercise what she had chosen in the previous episode, when she'd chosen to live again and to connect with these people. Now, can you walk it out? And her actually, for the first time, sharing what had happened with her son, with anybody, and choosing this, very young man, to be the first person she talks to about it, for the sake of getting him over his grief. I just loved that theme. But I guess in some ways, it would probably be episode 9. I don't know, the one where she does sort of face her demons, and leaves the prison and finds Rick and Carl. I don't know. But then I also love episode 2, where she finally cracks when she has to hold that little baby girl. And everyone was like, well, what just happened there? And it took a while for us to share what had happened there, but I just loved being able to open her up, finally, in that scene. So that's why I said I need a little string of scenes together to really answer your question.
Now, I know plot developments on the show are very closely guarded secret, but Nina in our chat room wants to know if there are any teasers you can give us for season 5.
No. But what I can tell you is that, it will be, it's astounding. I mean, we've been shooting and we get to the end of an episode and we're like, did we just get that done? Like, it's just, they're astoundingly massive stories being told every week, and it's amazing what I'm witnessing, what we're getting done, and what I'm seeing my colleagues accomplish. It's kind of mind blowing, and you read it on the page, you're like, how are we gonna do that? And somehow it's happening. But I will say, people will not be disappointed. It's a very, very exciting season. It keeps you massively on your toes, and it moves very quickly. So people will not be able to predict much. I can't predict much. I'm just trying to hold on there as I go through it. So it's really kind of amazing.
Well, I want to wish you the best of luck on the upcoming season of The Walking Dead and potential Emmys this season. I think it's past due for the show. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Great to talk to you. Really great too. Thank you so much.